webinar. My name is Erin Tripp, and we're about to get started. For those who are joining us live, please note that there is a menu at the top of your screen, and in the menu is a chat option. You can expand the chat option to ask questions to all participants or just the panelists. And if you do have questions, please type and send them to us, and I'll be happy to answer some questions at the end of the session. So let's get started. So today, we're focusing on switching to open source. And in this webinar, we're going to be talking about a number of things. We're going to be really general about open source software, why people adopt it all over the world in almost every industry. Islandora specifically, we're going to talk a bit about the community of people who support the project and also the technical details of the software. Focus on Discovery Garden services and how we can make it easy to switch to open source. I'd like to introduce myself and my colleague, Gervais. So I'm Tripp, and I'm the Business Development Manager at Discovery Garden. I'm a member of the Islandora project since around 2011, and I started with the company as a project manager. And I've been involved in close to 30 Islandora projects, and they have a very wide range of focuses, from consulting, training, data migrations, and also custom development. And on the line is Gervais. Gervais, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Gervais de Montbrun. I've been working with computers and members for about 20 years now. I came online with the Islandora Cloud project about 5 years ago, and since then I've moved around a little bit. Now I'm with Discovery Garden, and I'm currently systems team lead and the team.
The presentation today, myself and Gervais are going to be available to answer questions. It's a great opportunity to ask questions, things that you're not sure about, or questions you've been hanging on to for a little while. Into some of the basics of open source software. For those of you who aren't very familiar with open source software is typically made available under a GPL license or a general public license. People are able to download, install, and modify the software without paying licensing fees. It's the availability of software. It's intended to spur community development. Software is generally developed by a community of people who are passionate about the project. People are the same people who make sure that the project is a high-quality project by putting in place processes like code review, quality assurance testing, automated testing, things like that. So that's general open source software information. Now, you may think that when people implement open source software, they mostly do it for cost because there are no licensing fees. That's not the correct or not the top reason why people choose open source software. Over the last number of years, some really large IT consulting companies have decided to survey businesses in almost every industry and find out why people are implementing open source software. That the top 3 reasons are those that are on the screen there: quality, reliability, and fixing security bugs. Experience in the Islandora open source software community, I agree that open source software communities have reached a point of maturation where they do have best practice policies and processes in place, like the quality assurance, code review, things I mentioned. Because they're often run by a group of very passionate and motivated developers and other participants, it means that quality is at the forefront of many open source software communities. That the community aspect of open source is really the reason why we're seeing quality, reliability, and of security bugs as the top 3 reasons given by people who have adopted open source software. It is a really important one as well, though. Although not as popular, being a part of a user-driven community is very important to members of open source communities. Let's talk a little bit about this final point. When you're part of an open source software community, it means that you could be a user, you could be who's contributing ideas, or you could be contributing code, actually helping to build the software. And become a member of one of these communities, it means that you can have some influence over the direction of the community. It means you have a say. And anytime the users of a software have a say in the direction of the project, that's a really positive thing. So, community in the Islandora context. This is a graph, and it shows the institutions that have installed or are using Islandora all over the world. Here, that there are some very large clusters in North America. I would say that primarily most of our installations are in the United States, but we're growing clusters in Europe as well. To focus on is more growth in Europe, of course more growth in North America, and also seeing some more growth in Australia and China. We have one installation in Australia right now. We have done at Discovery Garden, and we're just beginning to work with an institution in China that is considering Islandora right now. Logos of institutions that have implemented Islandora. It's to say that the community is ever growing, it is international, and Islandora has been implemented at some of the most prestigious institutions worldwide. So in these logos, you may see some institutions that you recognize. You may even know colleagues that work for these institutions. So do you like to encourage conversation about institutions that have already switched to open source and are using Islandora? So if you want a case right from the horse's mouth, we can put you in touch with the people that we've worked with. They like to tell their stories about how they've implemented Islandora, why, and types of content that they're delivering to their users. The technology. So we'll set aside the community and its strong aspect in this open source community in general and talk about the technology. It is made up of 3 existing open source software technologies. Some of these, the Drupal, and for content management, we also create really beautiful websites. Solar is a discovery layer. It's that helps us index metadata so we can discover our digital assets. The technology used is the Fedora Commons platform. And of course, it's a best practice preservation platform in the academic and research space. And so if I were to sum up Islandora and what it is, I would say that it is a set of Drupal modules, and it's Drupal, Solar, and Fedora Commons work together. Provide a framework, let's say, for building asset management systems on top of Fedora. Another is that Islandora is OAIS, it adheres rather to the OAIS reference model with support for SIPs, APEs, and DIPs. The Islandora community in general is getting better at communicating the archiving and preservation capabilities of Islandora in general. And I wanted to put this in to speak to our inner archivist to let them know that there is much more capability than just in Drupal, just in Solar, or just in Fedora. So we have the OAS reference model and have a number of different tools that can be used in conjunction with Islandora, such as Baggit and other export formats as well. So Islandora has these modules called solution packs. They're templates for expressing digital objects and asserting relationships among them. And a good example of a solution pack is it's going to define what type of content you're ingesting into Islandora. And it's going to tell Islandora a number of things. It's going to tell Islandora which derivatives to generate upon ingest, which to use for entry, and also which viewers to use for display. So image solution pack. When you put a large image into Islandora, there are a couple of derivatives generated. There's a thumbnail, a medium-sized image, and a JPEG 2000. The large image form for metadata entry. Islandora also has the open viewer to display large images in Islandora with some really great zoom and pan capability. So just an example of how a solution pack will express a large image or a text in Islandora. List of solution packs available in Islandora, and it really has grown over the last 2 years or so. So we started with the core group of solution packs, including PDF, standard and large image, book, and it's grown to include binary file, a solution pack, web archive, sites, and also entities for people, places, events, and organizations. We do see the Islandora solution packs growing all of the time, and we often see Discovery Garden clients creating new solution packs, and all members of the Islandora community creating new solution packs as well. So now services. Switching to open source, it may seem intimidating. Garden does have a number of services that make it a whole lot easier. What we talk about is the JumpStart Bundle. It's also been called the Quick Start Bundle. And we have an example to tell you about today, a client that used the JumpStart Bundle last fall to get started in open source software. It was Moss Landing Marine Laboratories and decided to use Islandora for an institutional repository. So take advantage of the increased file format support, derivative generation, the Drupal front end, and compound and citation solution packs as well. So it included a number of services so that the one main staff member at Moss Landing was able to manage the project essentially on her own. What Discovery Garden did was complete the installation, provide documentation, some consulting on the systems administrative side of things, as well as support and theming, so that the Moss Landing was able to have their institutional repository up and going in no time, and they started populating the repository a month or so. So that's a great success story of a client that has used the JumpStart Bundle and up and running in no time at all. How we facilitate this type of service.
Well, Aaron covered a lot of it, actually. When we run like this, what we would do is we'd normally get a little pre-configuration communication, find out the best way for your need is if we are going to install the Islandora stack, which is what we call the collection of all of the different parts of it, all in one big server, or if we'd split it out into multiple servers, 1, 2, 3, however makes sense. Then generally what we do is sort of actual connection to your servers, and what we're looking for is command line access to the servers. We just want to be able to jump in there, type things all ourselves. We don't want the graphic interface on there. And so we get up there, install all the different parts, make sure it all works together, send it through our QA, make sure they'll test it all again after one of us does the install. And send it back off to you and say, there it is, it works. So right now, Islandora is only installation. We can run multiple different types of Linux depending on if you have a favorite version, like if you need to use Ubuntu or you want to use Red Hat Enterprise Linux. We can in most Linuxes, so we just sort that out and you prefer. If you are not familiar with Linux and you need help, we work that all into sort of the whole JumpStart Bundle, including walking you through to even up a Linux server or to set up a Linux virtual machine within your hypervisor, and just get in a few days because it takes a little longer. We're doing this as a manual install.
And some of the services that we do provide, they will vary depending on the client as well. So Gervais facilitated many of these JumpStart bundles, and depending on the staff at the client institution, the focus shift. Some institutions, they have ITS staff that can communicate with Gervais directly. Other institutions are really low on staff, and so we're able to communicate everything required, like the server access and other server requirements. It doesn't really matter what staff you have available. As long as we can get in touch with one person at the institution, we're able to facilitate all of the information required to do installation remotely. So now service, and this is really great for people that want to have the digital management system installed locally at their institute. They would rather put it in the cloud. So it's called Islandora On Demand. It includes a number of different services that make it really easy for customers to get up and running with open source software. So I'll let Gervais talk about more of the details, but some of the services are included. There's a screen, but it includes automatic updates for knowledge-based documentation, variety of support hours depending on the package that's right for you, automatic backups, and also a theme to get started. So have a digital asset management system up and running in the cloud in no time at all. Gervais, is it about a day that it takes to do an on-demand installation?
To the point where it was totally automated, but we have to make some changes now. So we leverage the that Amazon puts out there for people to use. We use another wonderful configuration tool called Puppet, and what would happen is it's sort of kick install, which is near their own in the cloud. It would spin up, and the Puppet actually tells the customer's virtual machine what it holds on it. It generates unique passwords for everybody. It's very secure, the whole thing. And then one of the advantages to this being something that we're managing full out like this, once we roll a new set of modules, like if there's updates to the book solution pack or any of the other ones, spin them up, test them, make sure they all are still working perfectly together. Then the Puppet can automatically push those updates out to every on-demand platform. The benefit to that over something like when you're installed on your servers, obviously we don't have full control. So for on our on-demand platform, anytime you feature or there's a new security thing or there's something that we want to apply, it can just push down automatically through our automated system. And monitoring capabilities in the cloud as well? A series of different monitoring things we do with them, and we don't guarantee which one we're going to use, but we can monitor your sorts of stuff about what's going on your server. We monitor with Nexus, which is a really well-known one that it'll tell you if your CPU load's high, if your network's gone crazy, if your disks are full, and we can actually take it before you would even know that there was a problem with your server. We would be contacting you to say, by the way, the on-demand package you bought, you fill our hard drive, and at the rate of consumption, you're going to fill it up in the next couple of days. Something urgent that would be flagged, we would be able to say, go in and doesn't need to be there so that your service doesn't go down in advance. We have some other tools. there's another one called Monet, which is Monet is part of it, and this thing will actually watch your server, and if a particular service that was essential to the server stops working, it actually restarts it and gets that running again. No one would even notice it. It alerts us that it goes up or down. Keep an eye on that. If it's happening a lot, we can that there's obviously something wrong, and tune in again before anyone even knows something's gone awry.
Okay. So based on the description, we from people that we've worked with that the on-demand service is really ideal for institutions that really don't have a lot of staff or resources to help maintain the server side of things for their installation or for their digital asset management system. So the services that we've included, they are really meant to support or facilitate your new digital asset management system with very little participation from the client. So what we've done is broken them into 3 levels, a tiered approach here. So there are on-demand services for individuals, and that's intended for scholars or researchers at institutions that don't have an overall strategy yet. We have a institution bundle that's meant for groups or organizations, and we have the consortia bundle. And for groups that have multiple institutions, and they will have one repository or digital asset management system and multiple Drupal sites. So facilitate digital asset management in the consortial environment. A bit about support. Some people call them maintenance services or support services. And just to get the conversation started, I wanted to add an anecdote from a client that we've been working with since 2012. McEwen University for 2 years. We started with an installation and then continued to provide services like training, support, and also custom development. And the McEwen University Institutional Repository was launched actually just this summer. And they said that the support services they received from Discovery Garden were vital to move from the development environment to the production environment. They have had a successful launch. I can provide the link to their new institutional repository for anyone interested in checking that out. And different levels of services that Gervais is going to tell us a little bit about.
Sure. 3 or 4 different bundles for support services. Really, the difference for the part is, you're buying blocks of hours of time. And if you get to the really high level of support, there's a response time issue where we'll respond with X number of hours and stuff. We have a customer that we have done an install for. They want support, so that's why support bundled in with those other. But we have customers that just continue to renew their support. We have a real support team. It's a few key players that follow. It also gives a little bit of access to our developers if we find that there's something wrong or something we found a little niche case. We'll put it over to the developers so
go online, easy, and it all links up to your email. So anytime there is a response to your support ticket, you'll get an email as well. Any questions from our participants? I have hosting. So this is going back to the Islandora on-demand service. Can you decide where geographically your data is hosted? And I've had clients ask about this before. So where your data is hosted is always going to be a hot topic. Sometimes it depends on the policies of the research grant that you've been given, or it has to do with the legislative requirements for the country that you're living and researching in. For example, in Canada, if you receive a Canadian research grant, there are some policies that the research data be hosted in Canada. So we looked at some of the options, and we primarily host our demand service in Amazon Web Services, and they do have data centers all over the world. So to host your data in Ireland or in the Philippines, but there is no Amazon Web Services data center in Canada. We have another hosting provider in Canada that we're using, and it's called Cloud Data. So if you have policies or any kind of rules about where data is hosted, we can do that. About how long it takes to complete the JumpStart install. Like after the decision is made, how soon after it could be actually installed. We get that one a lot as well. And after the decision has been made and the contract signed, our administrative team is quite flexible. To schedule an installation than it would be to schedule custom development. So really, anytime a new JumpStart bundle is signed, we can put that in within the first week or two from that signing. And the services that are included with that, like the training and support services, they are provided when it's convenient for you. If you want some training up front and then to save another portion of it for later on, that's all possible. We're very flexible in the way that we deliver services. Are there questions for today? We'll bring this webinar to a close. Thank you so much for joining us. Gervais and I were both very pleased to speak with you today. If you have any further questions, or if you would like to schedule a demonstration of any of the Islandora functionality, please contact me. You can reach me at info@discoverygarden.ca. Again for joining us. Have a great day.